Blake Harrison had always been the most self-assured person in any room. At 35, he ran one of the biggest tech firms in the United States. Success and money came easily to him. His days were filled with luxury, mansions, fast cars, and people eager to flatter him. To Blake, life was a contest of influence and control, and he usually came out on top. One Saturday afternoon, he and a few friends stopped at an unlikely place for someone with his status, the local McDonald's. It was a joke to them, a way to play ordinary for an hour. They took a table in the back. Conversation flowed, but Blake still led every topic. "You've done it all, Blake," said his old friend Caleb Turner, biting into his burger. "Made millions, won over whoever you wanted. But I doubt you can win this next bet." Blake raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Caleb smiled like he'd planned this moment. "I bet you can't marry a woman completely outside our world. Not a model. Not a businesswoman. Someone truly ordinary." Blake frowned while the others traded amused looks. "What does ordinary mean to you?" Caleb pointed discreetly toward a nearby table where a waitress was wiping down trays. Rachel Miller. She's a 28-year-old single mom. Works here to support her 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. I bet you can't win her over and marry her. Bring someone like her into your life." "You want me to marry the waitress?" Blake asked, half laughing. "Exactly. And I'll give you $2 million if you pull it off. No contracts. No tricks. A real marriage," Caleb said, eyes shining with the challenge. The amount meant little to Blake. The dare itself was the draw. He never refused a bet. It wasn't about the cash. It was about winning. Rachel's simple, hard-working life, so different from his, looked like a perfect new challenge. $2 million. Blake lifted his soda. "Easy. Get the money ready, Caleb. I'm going to win." His friends laughed, sure they were watching the start of another easy victory for the unstoppable Blake Harrison. Inside, Blake felt a spark he hadn't felt in a while. This would be different, and he liked different. He watched the waitress more closely. Rachel had light brown hair tied back, little to no makeup, and steady eyes that showed both tiredness and grit. She moved quickly, focused on the job. When she came near to clear cups, he spoke. "Rachel, right?" She glanced over, neutral. "Yes. Can I help you with something?" "Call me Blake," he said with a confident smile. "I don't think you've served me before." "I've worked here for months," she said. "You probably didn't notice." He chuckled. "Probably not. How about a coffee sometime?" "I'm working," she said, polite but distant. "Not now," he added smoothly. "On your day off. Just to talk." "I need to get back to work," she said and walked away. Blake wasn't used to that. The lack of interest only made him more determined. Rachel didn't bend to charm. That alone pushed him forward. As she came back by, he said lightly, "I'm persistent, Rachel. We'll see. I'll keep asking until you say yes." "Good luck with that," she replied with a small, cool smile. The bet with Caleb was now personal. Blake decided the next time he saw her, he'd be more direct. And then Caleb upped the bet to $2 million, just to make sure Blake couldn't shrug it off. Pride sealed it. He would get Rachel to agree, starting with a simple cup of coffee and, eventually, marriage. On the following Tuesday, Blake returned at the same hour. He watched Rachel with customers. She was quick, professional, and serious. Perhaps that's what set her apart from the women in his usual circle. When she reached his table, he tried again. "Hey, Rachel. Thought you might be expecting me." "I didn't know you came here so often," she said, surprised. "I think I'll start." "Great service," he teased. She wrote down his order with a skeptical look. Before she could leave, he tried once more. "About that coffee, just to get to know each other." She looked irritated but measured. "I appreciate it, but I'm busy. I don't have time for casual meetups." He softened his tone. "I understand. I'm not trying to make life harder. I'd just like to know you." She seemed ready to refuse again, then paused. Finally she sighed. "All right, Blake. But a quick coffee. I don't have time for more." That was enough for him. They met that afternoon in a small cafe nearby. Rachel arrived on time, still in uniform, a bit uncomfortable. Blake was relaxed. "So, how long have you been at McDonald's?" he asked, friendly. "A few years," she said. "It pays the bills. I support my daughter, Chloe. I work a lot." Blake nodded, suddenly aware of how different their lives were. He was used to talking investments and luxury trips. She was focused on rent, routine, and her child. "Do you have any free time?" he asked. "Not much," she said with a dry laugh. "If I'm not at work, I'm with Chloe." "What about you?" "I'm the CEO of a tech company," he said. "I work a lot too, but it's a different kind of life. She simply nodded, unsurprised. I figured. People like you don't usually spend time with people like me. Why say that? He asked, unsettled. It's not that everyone's the same, she said calmly. I just don't see what a wealthy man would want with a woman like me. You could choose anyone. He couldn't tell her about the bet, so he said the only thing he could. Maybe that's exactly why I'm here. You're not part of my world. That's rare. She met his eyes. My daughter comes first. If you're playing games, I don't have time for it. I understand, he said softly. No games. After a brief chat, she stood. I said it would be quick. Maybe we do this again? He asked. Maybe, she said after a moment and left. From then on, Blake dropped in more often, careful not to push too hard. Their short conversations slowly warmed. He learned about Chloe's school and Rachel's long shifts. She learned that Blake could listen. One quiet afternoon, he decided to stop circling. He walked up to the counter. Rachel, I've been thinking. I know this is sudden, but what would you think about taking this seriously? She frowned. Taking what seriously? He took a breath. Marriage. Rachel let out a startled laugh. You can't be serious. I barely know you. I know it sounds crazy, he said, steadying himself. But I feel something I haven't felt before. Maybe it's because you're real. Maybe it's because you live with purpose. You're asking to marry someone you hardly know? She said, stunned. What kind of sense does that make? I want to give you and Chloe a better life, he said. I'm not asking for an answer now. Just think about it. She searched his face. I'll think about it, she said finally and went back to work. Days passed in a swirl of doubt. The idea sounded impossible. Yet the promise of stability for Chloe tugged at Rachel's heart. A week later, Blake waited for her after her shift. Did you think about it? He asked. We're from different worlds, she said seriously. I'm a waitress and a mom. My child comes first. He brought out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, nothing flashy. I'm serious, he said. This is a chance to build something. For Chloe too. If you say yes, I won't let you down. Why me? She asked. With all your choices, why me? Because you're different, he said. Because you're real. She stared at the ring. This feels unreal. But I have a daughter to think about. After a long pause, she whispered, I'll accept, for Chloe's sake. He slid the ring onto her finger. I'll make it worth it, Rachel. Moving into Blake's mansion happened fast. The house was stunning, high ceilings, fine furniture, every comfort money could buy. To Rachel it felt impressive but cold. She tried to settle in, but the distance between their worlds showed up in small daily ways. At their first family dinner, they sat at a long table. Blake at the head, Rachel a few seats down, Chloe between them. Blake looked at the little girl with a mix of curiosity and nerves. Do you like it here, Chloe? He asked. Chloe nodded shyly. It's big, like a princess's house. It's a nice house, Rachel told her gently. But our life is still our life. Blake noticed the caution in Rachel's voice. He tried to lighten the mood with a childhood story, but she stayed guarded, unsure of her place. Weeks went by. Blake worked long hours. Rachel managed the home and Chloe's school routine. He tried to be present, asking about Chloe's day, suggesting family time, but the gap was obvious. One afternoon, Blake found Rachel helping Chloe with homework. He watched them for a moment. Their closeness felt easy and genuine, something he had never known. Need any help? He asked, awkward. Do you know anything about homework? Rachel teased. Maybe not, he laughed. But I can try. He sat with them. Chloe giggled at his mistakes as Rachel smiled. For the first time they felt like a small team. Still, Rachel wondered about Blake's true motives. Their marriage hadn't started in the usual way, and something felt unspoken. Meanwhile, Blake himself was changing in ways he didn't expect. What began as a bet had turned into something deeper. Around Rachel and Chloe, his victories and trophies felt empty. Over dinner one evening, he found himself talking about his childhood and the pressure he carried as a young CEO. Rachel listened without judgment. I don't think I've ever had anyone I could really talk to, he admitted. Sometimes you just need someone to listen, she said. Someone who expects nothing in return. Those words hit hard. He realized how often his relationships were built on status and favors. With Rachel there was only honesty. His life began to shift. He spent more time at home, cut back on late nights, and even arranged a simple weekend at the park. Chloe ran across the grass, laughing while he tried to keep up. Rachel watched them with a warm smile. Blake felt a kind of peace he hadn't known. I never imagined I'd feel this connected, he told Rachel quietly, watching Chloe play. You and she changed how I see everything. I feel something too, Rachel said cautiously. But we have to be honest. If this isn't real, I won't go on. It's real, he said. I've never been so sure. As months passed, he drifted from the friends who cheered on the bet. Caleb noticed. Over dinner one night, he confronted Blake. What's going on? You're pulling away. I'm learning what matters, Blake said. Is this about the bet? Caleb snorted. I thought it was a joke. It's not a joke anymore, Blake said, shutting down the conversation. That night he let the friendship go. He couldn't keep one foot in his old life. Rachel sensed his unrest. Maybe you're finding something more real, she said. Sometimes we have to get lost to find ourselves. Then one autumn morning an old business decision came back to haunt him. While reviewing files in his home office, Blake found an article about a factory his company had shut down years before. Back then it had been a simple cost-cutting move. Now he looked again and saw what it had done. Hundreds of people out of work, a town in decline. As he read more, a cold truth struck him. The factory was in Rachel's hometown. His decision had helped push her life off course. That was part of why she'd ended up at McDonald's, raising Chloe alone. He hadn't meant to harm anyone, but the harm was real. The guilt ate at him. He grew quiet and distracted. Rachel noticed the distance. One evening, after Chloe was asleep, he finally told her. Do you remember the factory that closed in your hometown? He began. Rachel's face fell. Yes. I was pregnant with Chloe. It was one of the hardest times of my life. It was me, he said, voice low. I ordered the closure. Silence. Rachel stared at him, stunned. You did that. At the time it was numbers on a page, he said. I didn't think about the people. I'm sorry, Rachel. If I had known. She stepped back, eyes filling. So all of this, the struggle, the nights I worked myself to the bone, was tied to you? And now what? I'm supposed to forget? He reached for her, she pulled away. I can't undo it, he said. But I want to make it right. Make it right, she said bitterly. You broke my life and then showed up as the rescuer. I don't know if I can forgive that. She left the room and Blake sat alone with his shame. Words wouldn't fix this. He needed to act. In the days that followed, Blake went to the town where the factory had been. He met former employees, listened to their stories, and faced what his decision had done. Then he set up a support fund for those families, committing a large share of his own money. It wouldn't erase the past, but it was a start. Back home, he waited for a chance to speak. When Rachel came into the living room one evening, he said, I went there. I met the people. I'm creating a fund to help them rebuild. She folded her arms. Money doesn't fix everything. I know, he said quietly. But I'm trying to take responsibility. She didn't forgive him, but she saw something in his eyes that looked like genuine remorse. The next day she came to his office. I heard what you said, she told him. I can see you're trying. I don't know if I can forgive you. But maybe, we can see what happens. Before they could say more, the office door opened. Caleb walked in wearing his old smirk. So you two are still playing house? Caleb, not now, Blake warned. Caleb ignored him and looked at Rachel. Did Blake tell you about the big bet? $2 million that he could marry you? Surprised he left that part out. Rachel stared at Blake, waiting for a denial that didn't come. Is that true? She asked, voice shaking. At first it was a bet, Blake said, desperate. But it changed. I changed. I fell in love with you. Rachel's face crumpled. First the factory. Now this. Our marriage was a game? She walked out of the mansion in tears. For days Rachel refused to see him. Every message went unanswered. Blake understood that sorry would never be enough. He needed to cut himself off from the man who'd made those choices. So he did something drastic. He negotiated in private and let go of the thing he'd built his identity on. When the papers were signed, he no longer owned the company that had defined his life. He went to the house where Rachel and Chloe were staying with a friend. She came to the door, tired and wary. I sold the company, he said. The place where those decisions were made. I'm not part of it anymore. Rachel looked confused and pained. What does that change? The lies are still lies. It doesn't erase anything, he said. But I can't be tied to that world and ask you to trust me. I want a clean start, with you and Chloe. She listened, torn between doubt and a small, unwanted hope. You had every chance to be honest from the beginning. I know, he said. I may never deserve forgiveness. But I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. She said nothing more that night. He went home unsure of anything, except that he had finally told the truth. In the weeks that followed, he gave her space. He sent a few gentle messages, but he didn't press. He tried to live by the values he'd learned from her: simplicity, empathy, honesty. At last Rachel reached out. "One more conversation," she said. They met. "I won't pretend it didn't hurt," she told him. "The factory. The bet. But I can see you're changing. Rebuilding trust will be slow and hard." "I understand," he said. "I'll wait as long as it takes." She nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door left open. They took small steps. Blake invited Rachel and Chloe to a nearby park for a modest picnic he made himself. The day felt simple and real. Rachel noticed the difference in him, especially since he no longer had the company. He talked about volunteering with families in need, asked about Chloe's school, and kept his promises. Chloe laughed freely with him, and Rachel watched the two grow closer. On the drive home, Chloe asleep in the back, he said, "I know one good day doesn't erase anything. But maybe it can be a beginning." "I can't promise this will be easy," Rachel said. "But if you keep showing up like this, maybe I can trust again." They kept meeting: walks, homework nights, school events. Blake stayed consistent. He didn't overpromise, he showed up. He continued the support fund for the former factory workers and put time into community work. The glitter of his old life mattered less and less. One calm evening at Rachel's home, she said what had weighed on her heart. "It still hurts, what you did and the bet. But I can see you're changing. I'm willing to try if you're honest from here on out. I can't face another letdown. Chloe can't either." "I hear you," he said. "Nothing will be like before. I'm here for both of you." They moved carefully but steadily. Weeks turned into months. Chloe began to see Blake as part of her life. He became a steady, caring presence. Rachel held on to a few reservations, but his actions slowly outweighed her doubts. By December, Blake invited them to a simple Christmas dinner at his now modest home. The table was plain, the mood was warm. Chloe opened a present and ran around the room laughing. Rachel looked at Blake and said softly, "These months have been good. I never thought we could build something real out of all that pain, but we have." "I've never been this happy," he said. "What I thought I needed has been replaced by this, by you, by Chloe, by our life." They talked about the future. Blake shared a plan to invest his time in a local project helping struggling families. He said he was inspired by what he'd learned from Rachel and Chloe. At the start of the new year, he proposed to Rachel again, this time honestly, with family and close friends as witnesses. He promised to be a partner to her and a father to Chloe. Rachel said yes, tears in her eyes. It wasn't about status anymore. It was about love and trust earned the hard way. Life settled into small, worthwhile moments. Blake kept working on the community project. Rachel began helping other women who had gone through hard times. Chloe grew in the safety of a home filled with care. About 1 year after their wedding, they learned they were expecting a baby. When the child was born, Blake cried openly as he held the baby. Rachel watched him with a full heart, knowing their family felt complete at last. After so much pain, Rachel had the fresh start she wanted, for herself, for Chloe, and now for their new child. Blake squeezed her hand and said, "Thank you for believing in me." "Thank you for proving I could," she replied. They walked forward as a family, knowing that pride, the $2 million bet, and empty victories were long behind them, replaced by something far more valuable: a real life built on truth and love.